Welcome to the Paul Leslie Hour. It's the fourth appearance of Conal Fowkes, singer, pianist, and member of Woody Allen's jazz band. Conal will also be performing a couple of songs on this show. The Paul Leslie Hour has a mission, and you can help. Just go to www.thepaulleslie.com/support. Right out front, we say thank you. Gentlemen, Conal, Mr. Paul, it's time to get this show going.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be welcoming back for a fourth time. Again, I will say this is the fourth visit of Conal Fowkes. He is a Grammy award-winning pianist, vocalist, double bassist, arranger. He's a recording artist. His music has been featured in major motion pictures. And I can say that there have only been a few guests who have been on four times. And I know you're a humble man. You've said, I'm not that interesting. And I think the people who have listened to your interviews would disagree. Conal Fowkes, thank you very much for being with us.
You're very welcome, Paul. Thanks so much for having me back again. It's always a pleasure.
It is a pleasure for us, yes. So how's it been going?
Well, since we last spoke, things definitely feel more optimistic, or I should say I feel more optimistic about the direction we're going in. The music scene, talking about New York City and my kind of local area, is definitely opening up. It's still a shadow of its former self, but it's heading in the right direction. And I've been doing a few gigs, a trickle of gigs, 2 or 3 a week, which is great, and it makes me so happy to get out there and play and see my friends and colleagues, and it feels good.
I'm glad to hear it. I think was it 2020 or was it last year that we spoke?
I have no memory at all, Paul, so I'll have to leave that one to you. I don't remember. It feels like it was a year ago, but
yeah. It seems like the past couple of years have kind of molded or merged into one.
Absolutely. This whole, I don't know what you call it, this whole COVID block of time. Yeah. It gets it's hard to remember when things happened and, how long ago things were.
So tell us, when we were talking the last time, we were kind of dreaming about what it would be like to see live music. Since then, you have performed a few times. What was the first gig that you did where you performed in front of a live audience after the lockdowns?
I don't know if it was actually the first, but the first few things I was doing were in small kind of local venues in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And they were full of people, great attendance from the public. And it was almost like the old days. I went in there a little bit gingerly, and kept a mask on. And I was surprised at the amount of people in there and the close proximity of people. And it was all, legal and according to city regulations. And once I kind of accepted that and got used to it, I mean, it was great. It was wonderful. It was kind of like it used to be.
So I can't help but notice you have quite a large number of books there, and I'm wondering, are those songbooks? What do you have there?
These here are actually LP records.
Oh, okay.
And there's the same amount on the other wall over there, which you can't see. And I keep my music library, sheet music stuff, just around the corner there. Hundreds of books of old sheet music and that kind of stuff. But yeah, these are LPs.
Okay. Now, when we look through the record collection there, tell us about some of your favorites that you go to again and again.
Oh boy, there are so many. So I try and group these in maybe like a piano or mainly piano kind of bunch. There's big band stuff, and then I've got female vocals, male vocals, I got a whole Cuban and Latin section down here, and but some of my well, there's a few favorites that I've had since I was a kid that I still keep going back to, and that's a Jay McShann solo LP on the Black Lion label called Vine Street Boogie, and I still go back to that. There's an Eddie Condon kind of compilation album that my dad bought me when I was about 10, and I still go back to that one. It's got all these great guys on it. And then I'm constantly picking here and there if I'm learning new material, or I feel like a George Shearing little binge or something, or whatever it might be. So I pick around all the time and have little phases of certain people.
If somebody was trying to expand their horizons and they weren't very familiar with Latin jazz, could you recommend for them a great Latin jazz record to get things going?
Latin jazz, yeah. Well, there's a band. One of my favorite bands growing up in my 20s, I should say, that I came across in London was a band called Irakere, which Chucho Valdez led and directed, and they put out a lot of great albums. And there's, to pick one, they're all great, but to pick one, there's one or two volumes that were recorded live at Ronnie Scott's in London, and they're both fantastic. Now it's very Cuban, and the style is very Cuban, so it's not like New York or American Latin jazz. This is real Cuban jazz, Afro-Cuban jazz. But it's a wonderful place to start. Amazing band, absolutely amazing band, and wonderful arrangements and ridiculous soloing, and it's got everything there. So that might be a place to start.
So anything going on or coming up on the horizon with your Latin jazz band?
Actually, yeah, we just I play in a few, and they're not Latin jazz. One's a what they call a sonora, which is a style of band that was prominent in the 30s and 40s, and the music we play, the songs are from that period, and they're called Los Soneros de Oriente, and we just made a recording. It's kind of a mini album. It's about 7 or 8 songs, and we just performed 2 nights ago. Wonderful gig in the Bronx, and a lot of the kind of local the fans of this band came out to see us, which was great. Sorry, I've got to move this. The other Latin groups I play with have still not really started up playing again. One band we were supposed to rehearse next week and make a single for a Scandinavian label, but there's been problems. I don't think that's going to happen. That group has invitations for the summer and into the early fall to go to Zanzibar, of all places, and Colombia and the west coast of the States. So fingers crossed that goes ahead.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
I have been going through over the last few months, and I've been listening to what a lot of people would call the great standards of jazz. And I've been, there are a lot of them that are so famous that I felt like I was overlooking them. And I was listening to this one that everybody knows, and it's been recorded by pretty much every jazz musician, and along with people like Paul McCartney. And I'm talking about Bye Bye Blackbird.
Yeah. Great old song. That's I think Ray Henderson and Mort Dixon were the composer and lyricist on that. 1926, I believe, which was a good year. A lot of great stuff came out in that year.
Coming up on 100 years of that song.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that one of those songs that pretty much for a man like yourself, if you're going to be a pianist, you have to learn, you have to know that song?
I would say, yeah, it's one of those that you kind of expected to know. Although, having said that, I don't remember the last time somebody kind of called it on a gig.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these songs go in and out of vogue, I guess. But it's definitely a song that you would just assume everybody knows,
Well, Conal, how would you feel about playing it?
I'll certainly give it a shot. Why not? It's a great old tune.
All right.
There's with your permission, Paul, I'll attempt the lesser known verse of that song also, which rarely ever sees the light of day, but it's actually quite a nice verse. So if I can remember the lyrics, your listeners will have an idea. Everybody knows the chorus. That's the famous part. But,
right.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Blackbird, blackbird, singing the blues all day, right outside of my door. Blackbird, blackbird, why do you always say there's no sunshine in store? All through the winter you hung around. Now I begin to feel homeward bound. Blackbird, blackbird, gotta be on my way where there's sunshine galore. Pack up all my care and woe, here I go singing low. Bye bye, blackbird, where somebody waits for me, sugar's sweet, so is she. Bye bye, blackbird, no one here can love and understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they all hand. Make my bed, light the light, I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye bye. No one here can love and understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they all have. My bed, light the light, I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye bye. Something like that.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've heard that verse before.
No.
But nobody ever does it, and neither do I. You play the famous chorus part, but looking over it and learning it, it's a pretty thing, and it's got that minor, Blackbird, Blackbird, and then singing the blues all day. It's kind of a little mournful to begin with, and
Yeah,
it's nice. It's a shame it gets left out.
absolutely. True. Conal, would you say you were heavily influenced by Fats Waller?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Um, I think anybody who uh, plays what we call stride piano, Harlem stride, whether you dabble in it or really specialize in it, Fats is he's it. I mean, he was a student of James P. Johnson, who's really the father of that style, and many, many great stride players. But Fats, maybe was the greatest.
Hmm.
But I love him anyway. It's yeah, huge influence.
There's something I don't think I have the musical education or the knowledge to pinpoint what it is, but there's always something of Fats Waller that I hear in you.
I'm not surprised at all. I just listened to way too much of him that is good for me. But yeah, it just creeps in. There's all these little figures, or I don't know. It creeps in.
You can't have too much Fats Waller.
I agree.
So what's going on with the Woody Allen Jazz Band? Is there any talk or rumors or anything of performances coming up there?
Yes, there are. We haven't played. We haven't been together all this time, but there is talk. I'm not allowed to publicly let you in on everything, but there is talk about maybe starting up in May
Hmm.
with a regular residency again in New York City. We have two new members of the band now. Unfortunately, our wonderful bass player who was with us for I don't know, 20 years or so at the Carlisle, she moved back to Australia where she's originally from. So we have a new bass player, wonderful guy that I've worked with for years called Brian Nalepka.
Ah,
He's going to be coming in on bass. And we have a new banjo player who is a terrific young musician. I think he's still in his 20s. And he'll be coming in. His name's Josh Dunn. And Woody's dying to play. I spoke to him a few days ago, and he's very excited and wants to play. But it looks like May, I think. But I can't really publicly announce the full details
right,
until
right.
until others do first.
Well, that's more news than we had.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's also rumors about possible concerts in Europe in the summer.
Oh, nice.
And I've had more than one email from people over there setting stuff up. We don't know if that'll happen, but it's certainly being talked about.
Can you tell us what numbers that you performed with the Eddie Davis and Woody Allen New Orleans Jazz Band that you felt the group kind of had a mutual love? These were like band favorites.
Sure. There's quite a few. Good Old New York, which is a Jolly Roll Morton composition. Woody used to love to close the night with that song, and the whole band loves that tune. And it's a great piece of music, and it's great for improvising on. So that's certainly one. One of the great Sidney Bechet French titled compositions, Dans les rues d'Antibes, became, I think I can speak for the whole band and say, became kind of a band favorite, and it's a great one. There's a lot of them. Those two come to mind, but I mean, the band, it's a great repertoire. It's a very large repertoire, and it's all good 90+% of it we all love to play anyway. It's a lot of great tunes.
There's something that I've wanted to ask you about for a long time, which I didn't ask you last time, and I was kind of kicking myself about it. He's passed away, sadly, but can you remember that gig that you all did where Chick Corea showed up?
Absolutely. I'll never forget that. It
Tell
was
us about
wonderful.
it.
Chick and Gail, his wife, came to see the band, and we were all surprised to see him come in. But turns out Gail, especially, I think, is a huge Woody fan, the movies and the writing, and Chick is too. And he came several times. They both came several times. But I think the first time was when Eddie invited him up to sit in with us. And Chick kind of insisted that I stayed with him and we played together for the first tune. You know, I got up and kind of handed him got out of the way so that he could sit at the piano, and he kind of said, no, stay, we'll play together. So I got a extra special thrill out of that night. It was wonderful. And we played Easter Parade, you know, the Irving Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was great. It was great. Great memory.
I think it's still up, but if anybody is interested, there was at one point, probably still is, video on YouTube of Chick Corea sitting in with the band.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still there. Yeah.
So everyone check it out.
It was a great moment. He came back another time, saw the whole gig, and it happened to be Eddie and Debbie, our bass player's birthday. Their birthdays are about a day apart. And Chick sat down and played Happy Birthday, and Gail sang, and he improvised on it, and it was wonderful.
Well,
he was a great guy.
Yeah, and some incredible recordings. You can just get lost in the recordings that Chick Corea left behind.
Oh yeah, he was. You know, we got to hang out quite a bit, and he invited Eddie and I to his performances at the Blue Note over a few years. Every time he was in town, so we spent some time in the dressing room. He was a huge fan and admirer of stride piano and the early kind of jazz styles, and we talked quite a lot about that. And he was a big Mary Lou Williams kind of fan, and he loved all that stuff. You know, he wasn't just coming in to see the famous movie maker. You know, he really had a genuine and deep respect and appreciation of the music.
Well, being that gig is such a high profile gig, it does bring in all kinds of people. Can you tell us about any of the other musicians and non-musicians that you looked over and you thought, oh wow, no kidding, look over there?
Yeah, there's been all kinds. Do you remember what's his first name, the LaMotta, the heavyweight champion, Jake LaMotta? Is it Jake?
I think so.
He came in. Bo Derek came in one night.
Oh.
And she was dating I'm terrible with names. A guy that did one of these sitcom I forget. It's all on the internet. Someone can find it. She came in. Wow, I got no memory, Paul, anymore. The British guy that's in Graham Nash.
Oh wow.
Came in several times, and what a wonderful guy. And he hung out with the band and talked. He could have talked all night about old music and songwriters and all that. And Tim Rice came in. Andrew Lloyd Webber's, lyricist, and another lovely guy that was so into what we were doing and then wanted to talk about music. They just hung out after, the place is empty and these guys are still hanging out. Quite a lot of actors that have been in Woody's films came in over the years. Chris Martin from Coldplay came in with he was then with
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow, and he came in with Chrissy Turlington and her partner at the time, Burns, Ed Burns.
Yeah.
They all came in together, and they all came up to meet the band afterwards. And I'm going to tell you something that's embarrassing, but I didn't know who Chris Martin was, and I certainly didn't recognize him. And in conversation, I clearly gathered that he was a musician. So I said, "Oh, so Chris, you're a musician also?" And Ed Burns looked at me, gave me kind of a dirty look. I think he thought I was deliberately being facetious or something, but I genuinely didn't know. And what a wonderful guy Chris Martin was. And we kind of kept in touch since then. And a few months after that night, Chris called me to ask if I could talk Woody into opening up for Coldplay at Madison Square Gardens. He said, I just love the band so much, and this music is so wonderful. I want my audience to hear it because they'll never hear this kind of music. So, we approached Woody, and Woody thought about it for a second and decided it didn't interest him. So we never got to do that. But no, Chris was wonderful. And Chris said, well, don't worry if he doesn't want to do it. You and tell all the band and their spouses and whatever, they've all got free tickets. And, it was wonderful. It was great. And he came back a few times too.
Nice.
Yeah. Lenny Kravitz is another one. Sorry, I'm remembering. Lenny Kravitz came in one night and was knocked out with the music. Super interested, and interesting.
I found through my time of interviewing the musicians in the band, some of the members seemed like they were a little dismissive of their own talents, because maybe it's humility or whatever, but it's a great show. It's wonderful to hear this music and to see it up close. And I felt like there could be more, like, I don't know, like, it's okay to be confident, or maybe it seems like arrogance to some, but just look at all these people who enjoy it.
Yeah. It's very nice of you to say that. I love the band, and I think the show is great. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's there's no flashing lights or smoke machines. It's just 7 guys playing acoustically. There's no we don't even use microphones for anybody. But yeah, I think the music's it's deep and it's wonderful and it's infectious, and yeah.
So, is there anybody that you've always wanted to work with that you haven't yet?
There are. I'm trying to think who that might be. Good question. There obviously are. I'm trying to think. I'm struggling to come up with some names here. I'll have to think about that one and get back to you.
No problem. No problem.
No, I'm totally blanking out, but obviously there are. I just can't pull the names out.
I could see the jazz band doing something with Willie Nelson sometime.
Oh wow! Yeah, yeah. He's a guy that I think would definitely kind of dig that kind of music, and yeah, he's fantastic. Jeez.
He did that album a few years back with Wynton Marsalis, which came out really good, you know.
Right. I haven't heard that actually, but
Oh,
I could totally imagine it.
it's worth checking out for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I could totally hear that.
Well, I'm not sure if you have seen. I thought we could send the viewers and listeners out there on their way. I feel like we kind of have been hanging out in a jazz club right at dusk, and it slowly started getting darker. And you know, it's cool. But there's this movie coming out this summer about Elvis Presley. It's a
Is there?
Yeah, it looks fantastic, I have to say. What do you think of that type of early rock and roll music?
I love it. I'm
Yeah?
not. I'm not. I'm not a connoisseur of it. But I mean, early Elvis, I think, is fantastic. And when I hear uh, a young Elvis singing, I hear the Mills Brothers. I hear Bing Crosby in his voice and all that. And um, yeah, it's just wonderful. I love early rock and roll. Not that I've studied it or I'm particularly knowledgeable of it, but yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a it's a direct offshoot of jazz music. It's and the further back you go, the closer it is, and it's they sh- we share a lot of musical elements.
And Elvis did so many old songs. People think of him as mostly singing songs from the 50s and 60s, but a lot of those songs that he was doing, like Are You Lonesome Tonight, they go back to the 20s.
Exactly. I mean, what a beautiful song. That's an old waltz that was recorded many times, decades before Elvis came along. And yet, if you mention that song title, most people think, oh, that's an Elvis Presley song, and probably assume he wrote it as well, because it's his version of it is all over the world, and it's certainly the most successful recording of it. But yeah, that's an old. There's another Blueberry Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Is from 1927, I think, and everyone, says Fats Domino and probably think he wrote it, and it was recorded by a lot of people over decades before that. Another beautiful, just old Tim Pan Alley song.
Oh, yeah. And Fats Domino did a lot of old songs, and I always feel like he is underrated by a lot of people. Like his interpretation of My Blue Heaven is really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure those guys were listening to, the Mills Brothers and Bing Crosby and, all that old, all the old jazz stuff, the vocal jazz songs.
Well, I was just thinking as the sun goes down there in New York, it might be nice if to send the viewers on their way or the listeners, if we could hear some Are You Lonesome Tonight?
Sure thing. Be my pleasure. I'm going to throw in the Little Heard verse also on this one. If you listen to the early recordings of this with some of those Irish tenors and all the rest of it, they usually put the verse in, but Elvis didn't. So
Wonderful.
I'll give it a shot. Tonight I'm downhearted, for though we are parted, I love you and I always will. And while I am lonely, I write to you only to see if you care for me still. Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight? Are you sorry we drifted apart? Does your memory stray to a bright summer's day when I kissed you and called you sweetheart. Do the chairs in your parlor seem empty and bare? Do you gaze at your doorstep and picture me there? Is your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again? Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? The chairs in your parlor seem empty and bare. Do you gaze at your doorstep and picture me there? Is your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again? Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight?
Beautiful.
Thanks, Paul. Just a pretty old song. It's pretty rough trying to do something that Elvis that's so iconic that Elvis did. It's hard to shake that thing, but it's a beautiful old waltz. It's nice.
Well, I loved it. I loved it, and I liked hearing that. Oh, I had not heard that version.
Yeah, the verse is nice. It sets up the song nicely. It's a lot of these songs had beautiful verses that get left out. And that's also 1926, same year as Bye Blackbird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Conal Fowkes, thank you so much for joining us. I haven't interviewed many people 4 times, but you always deliver, the verses that nobody else knows. You're a marvelous player, a great singer. I'm honored to interview you.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. And the feeling is mutual. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. And like I said before, I'm really not that interesting, but anytime you want to do this.
And humble.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Much obliged.
Yeah, all the best. And hopefully see you maybe this summer when things get going.
Absolutely. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All the best.
You know, the Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people like you, listeners, viewers. Please go to thepaulleslie.com/support, and you'll know what to do when you're there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who contributes. Video editing today by Kumar. Performance of The Entertainer intro song by John Primorano. And of course, this is your announcer speaking. See you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.